Starting?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody to the University Church. I know there's a couple people who have never been here before, so really fast I'm going to tell you kind of like what we're about here. We're a United Methodist Church. We started over on campus, which is why we're called the University Church, and then someone offered us this building, and the minister said, sure, we'll take it, and we kind of came over here, and he is very resourceful, kind of looked around and said, like, okay, what do we have here? We have 8 acres, let's grow food, like, let's help people in the community. So he hired on a full-time farmer, basically, who just started writing grants and getting people to come and volunteer. So we started off just with the vertical garden, some chickens, a couple community plots, and now we've expanded where we have like 2 hoop houses, we have aquaponics, we have community gardens, we have an herbal garden, we have almost 30 chickens right now, we do bees, we do honey, all that kind of stuff. And then we've also expanded where we have a community garden over at Reynolds Elementary School, which is one of the poorest of like TPS, Toledo Public School, elementary schools in this area. 90% of the kids there are on like subsidized like lunches and dinners. We have a program there where we do like after school stuff with them and summer programs to help them with homework and just kind of mentoring. Right now we are able to even do like a one-on-one with the children, which has been wonderful. So we have all sorts of stuff kind of going on. So yeah. And for those of you that don't know me, I am Megan Firestone Brigney, and I work here at the University Church. I started off as an AmeriCorps Vista and loved it so much, so when I finished AmeriCorps, and for those of you that don't know what AmeriCorps is, it's kind of like the Peace Corps, but in the United States, and it's only 1-year commitment at a time. So I got stationed here, which is great, because I knew Julian and some of the people that were working here already. And yeah, so I did that for a year, and then I got hired on and do all sorts of stuff, mostly in the garden portion here. And yeah. And I got into herbalism because I have all sorts of crazy health issues. I know some of you have come to hear me talk a couple of other times, but I have an immune deficiency. It's a genetic immune deficiency. So I was born with it. It's the same thing as like Bubble Boy, if any of you have heard of him, from like the 70s. So back then you had to literally live in a bubble because you have no immune system. But now there's so many treatments. I'm pretty much good to go. I do plasma infusions, and then I do all sorts of alternative stuff, and it just seems to really help me. But for the most part, I'm like pretty good to go. But when I first got diagnosed with the plasma infusions, you have so many side effects. Like there's crazy things that happen, and doctors were really struggling. Like I was on so many medications, and just couldn't really figure out like a good balance. And so I started seeing a couple holistic doctors up in Ann Arbor and in the Toledo area, and they started saying like, hey, like why don't you stop taking one of these meds that has so many side effects and try some of these alternative things. And it was kind of like, sure, like what the heck, like I have nothing to lose. So just kind of started committing to like eating well, trying out some different things. I mean, basic things, like just trying, you know, to use lavender essential oil and take valerian root at night, and that helped with sleeping, and just really, really basic things. And so I kind of started becoming like obsessed and growing some things like in, you know, just on my porch, like at my apartment at school, and trying things, and culinary spices, adding more things in, and just noticed a really big difference. So once I came here and had access to the herbal garden, and then we partnered up with Medicinal's greenhouse, which if you've ever been over there, she's wonderful. She's also a certified herbalist, and her selection of herbs is really great. So she's kind of started bringing stuff over, like, hey, you should try this or add this to the herbal garden. And so we just kind of bonded, and it's kind of taken off. So then I signed up for a class through the Herbal Academy of New England, and got certified as an herbalist. It's an online course, but you have to like actually send in your like things that you make. So like different tinctures and salves. So you send them in, and then they like grade them. But it's pretty cool. So that was really fun to do, and you have such a great like online community. So yeah, I finished up that, and now we're here. Yeah. So mostly this is going to be really casual, so if you guys have any questions, or even if you guys know something, or if I misspeak, or you just want to add to something, like please just speak up, or raise your hand, or however you want to participate. I prefer like intimate settings and more kind of, you know, engaged-based discussion and things like that. But the reason that I really wanted to do like an herbal class here, yeah.
And it's
I just noticed some of the herbs and the different uses of them. And I'm starting to get into essential oil use.
Sure.
And I didn't know if, is the essential oil, I mean, I know it's so much more concentrated, but
Right.
is it better to use like a dried, plant or the oil itself, or
Sure.
what is your...
That's such a good question because just in the past 5 years, essential oils have taken off. Everywhere you go, everyone has the diffusers for sale and essential oils. And I use essential oils, not every day, but there are some that I absolutely love to use. The thing about them is, like she said, they're very concentrated. And one thing as a gardener that I struggle with essential oils is for one bottle of lavender, you would need an entire table of dried lavender to maybe fill that bottle.
Yeah.
So it uses so much of it, but I think it definitely has a place in certain situations. If I get a cold, definitely I will use some rosemary essential oil because it's just so much stronger than if you're using it. But I think people who use them every day, and especially when people use them on children, it can be kind of dangerous because it's so concentrated and because herbs are more powerful than I think people give them credit for. And so, especially if you have no experience and you just go in and start using them, I think you have to be cautious. And I think for people to start, sometimes it's better to start with the fresh and dried herbs just so you kind of get a feel for how to use them and what their texture is and what they're like. But I think essential oils absolutely have their place as far as alternative medicine goes. If that answers your question. Okay. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything about essential oils that they want to add? Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, they have a place, but it's just like with the herbal remedies. There's different ways to take them. So an essential oil is just a different mechanism for using a plant material. My only concern is a lot of the words that surround essential oils are made up. There's no such thing as a therapeutic oil.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have herbs and you grow them or you wildcraft them, you generally can look at the environment and you know where they come from. Or if you buy them from someplace like Mountain Rose, they test all their herbs and you can say, okay, they're organic. Well, with essential oils, and there's so much marketing that surrounds them that they're suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be very cautious.
You have to educate yourself on how to use them. Don't trust an upline.
The other thing is a lot of certain companies, 2 of them in particular, will say it's okay to ingest them.
Right.
Well,
but then the rest of them it says do not ingest. So it's so hard to say
So in my feelings are, if I'm going to take something that I want to ingest, I'm going to use a tincture, a tea, or instead of an oil. Even though the 2 companies in particular go, oh yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I think it's safer all around. And plus, I think just having the whole herb in general just provides you so much because the way that they're made, each herb, is a lot of times, even when we talk about pharmaceuticals, they extract a certain property, right? And so they make these, these medications, and even the ones that are derived from plants, you really aren't getting all the benefits because the way that the plant's designed, you're supposed to use the whole part of the plant and all the properties kind of work together. And so that's what I love so much about kind of growing your own and just experimenting, especially if you like to cook or even if you're a beginner and you think you don't know anything about herbs, it's so easy. All you have to get a rosemary plant, get a basil plant, and just put it by your window, and that's it. You're there. You are now an herbalist. You have started on the journey because all you have to do then is pick a couple of those, throw them in your soup, put them in your smoothies, add them to your mashed potatoes, whatever you have to do, throw them in your teas. And I think we have a tendency, especially in the United States, to be really afraid of those things and we think oh, we have to go see an herbalist and they have to tell us the specific dosage, or we have to go to the health food store and buy it in a capsule. One of the funniest supplements that I see at Claudia's or Bassett's is grape seed extract, and people think oh, it's so good for your immune system. It's so good. It's wonderful for your immune system. It's literally grape seeds. So the things that we take out of the grape, all you have to do is go to the farmer's market and get some Concord grapes and don't spit out the seeds and you're good to go. And so just I think we don't always think about those things. We have a tendency to think oh, because it's in this package, or even some of those supplements the dosage will be so small, like you're better off just throwing in a sprig of rosemary into your soup. And don't get me wrong, I think that supplements and things have their place, absolutely. But I think the thing that I want you to take away from this is just not to be afraid, like use rosemary in everything this winter. Like throw it in every soup you make, or like, you know, whatever you want to put it in. I just think it's so valuable. Yeah, anything to add, or we should keep going? Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk about just really quickly, just the fact that herbs have been used for such a long time. We know for sure that there's been like written data that's been found from as far back as like 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. We know that Egyptians, you know, obviously the Chinese and India, the Romans, they all used herbs as medicine. And really exciting news is just like in the past year, we know that there's a couple like Neanderthal skeletons that were found, and there was flowers that were placed with them. So everyone was talking about like, oh, flowers, like it must have been a grave site and someone left flowers there. But if you look at the article, the flowers that were left were yarrow and calendula, which are like my two favorite herbs. And obviously we have no proof. Maybe they were just pretty flowers and they were used as like a burial kind of thing. But I think it's so cool because those two, like in traditional medicine, those two pair together so well. It's the two that we're going to be using today when we make our salves. So I don't know, to me that just says something, like maybe, you know, as far back as that goes, we've been using medicinal herbs. So I think it's really exciting. I think another thing too to talk about is, like I said, people kind of have this fear of using herbs. And in the United States, there are 0 to 2 deaths a year from herbal medicine, where adverse drug reactions are the 4th leading cause of death in the United States. And again, of course, I do plasma infusion, so I'm a huge, you know, supporter of Western medicine, but I think that we need to kind of keep in mind that, like, it's really not risky to kind of play with some of the herbs, kind of like I've said. And, you know, when that one person dies or does something stupid with the herb, and that makes national news, and then it kind of, like, freaks everyone out, like, oh my God, like, I can't do that, I can't take that, and I can't, you know, have the freedom to kind of play around. So I just want to make sure everyone feels like, okay, yeah, it's okay to kind of mess around with these and add these to my food and my tea. Okay, so speaking of like pharmaceutical drugs, and we talked about how a lot of them kind of started off as plant-based. Do you guys know any, like, do you guys know, I know some of my med students back there, like, where did morphine come from? Where did aspirin come from? Do you guys know any of those plants? No, not even my med students? Come on, you guys. So like morphine, yeah.
Aspirin comes from willow?
Yeah, aspirin comes from willow bark. Morphine comes from the opium plant. Digitalis, which is like for congestive heart failure, comes from foxglove, which is found everywhere here. People put it in their yards. It's a beautiful flower. Yeah.
I was just thinking about the 2 gentlemen who just won with one of the Peace Prizes, or for finding, they were using Eastern medicine to create a pharmaceutical drug to help with the worm that lived in the water. I can't remember where it was. Was it Africa or somewhere? And it was like a type of tapeworm or some kind of worm that was in the drinking water.
Sure.
And I remember just the part of the article, or not article, just I was listening to on the radio, and it said that they had been researching Eastern medicine, and then so I mean, just recently, the news, it was, I thought, oh, neat, but.
Right, yeah, so many things, like even chemotherapy, like the original chemotherapy drug, Taxol, came from the yew tree. So yeah, I think we tend to forget that it started off plant-based, and actually still, I just read on the World Health Organization this morning that 20% of pharmaceutical drugs still actually incorporate like plant-based things, but the other 80% are pretty much all synthetic. Sorry, I have so many things I want to tell you, so narrow it down. Okay, so I think one really important thing is a quote that I hear a lot in like the herbal community, is that herbs build health and drugs suppress health. And that's one thing I even wrote on one of the handouts, is that something to keep in mind about herbs is that they're really, really powerful and they're so important. And yes, people will turn to them when they're desperate and as a cure. But they're so much more beneficial as like a preventative and like just balancing out your body like before you're in a dire situation. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. Instead of waiting for like a crisis to happen, kind of just start experimenting now, like when you're healthy, and just throw things in. I don't know, do you guys want to talk about some of the herbs up here? At some point I was going to take you out to the herbal garden. Do you guys want to go now? Do you want to talk about some things first?
Let's go.
Yeah? Okay, let's go. All right, you guys, so welcome to the herbal garden. It doesn't look its best because it's kind of the end of the season, so things are kind of gearing down, and we've been harvesting like crazy, and some of them just, you have to cut back once they start to die. But we have all sorts of fun stuff. I'm going to show you today, like one of the herbs that we're going to be working with is calendula. It's one of my top 5 favorite herbs, and it's actually related to the marigold, so it grows very well in this area. You can plant it around your garden because it keeps pests away, but it's also medicinal. But you have to get the calendula type of marigold. You can't just use any type of marigold. And they grow all year round, so these have been blooming since June. So like every 2 or 3 days I come out here and I've been picking these. So some of the flowers that we're going to use in the herbal salves today have come from the garden, which is so wonderful. And I have them everywhere, and I have them even in people's plots out there. They're so simple. As soon as they bloom, like this one, you literally just take it, and that's the end. You've just harvested your first herb. And so it's so easy. The one thing you want to do is, like, when you dry out your herbs, is you never want to leave them out in the sun. People think like, oh, that'll dry it out. That will discolor it. You'll get something brown. All the nutrients will have been lost. So you kind of, I like to put them like just in a cardboard box. Set them in the dining room. As long as they're getting airflow, you can put them. We put them on top of our shed where it's dark. You just want to keep them in a dark place, on a bookshelf even, as long as they can kind of dry out and not get too burnt out.
Can you put them in paper bags?
Paper bags is fine. I like to like poke a couple holes if I do that, or just leave the top open.
Yeah.
But they should dry pretty well in the paper bag too. Yeah, does anybody have questions about that? Optimum temperature. It depends. I mean, you don't want it to get too hot. I've tried a couple times like in the oven or like in a dehydrator, and I've definitely like burnt a couple of things. So you want to experiment, but like really if you keep them like in the house somewhere, even like room temperature. Yeah, even in the shed, like in the summer and stuff, it's 90 degrees in there and they still dry out just fine. So really the shade is like the more important thing than the actual temperature. And then the other herb that we're going to be working with today is over here, and this is yarrow. This is another really great herb.
Is this everywhere?
Yes, you see it a lot. And like this is a great one to remember like when you're hiking, because if you ever like cut yourself, all you have to do literally is like take it, put it on your cut, and it will stop the bleeding almost immediately. It's wonderful for clotting. It's also great for like colds, the flu. It has a very distinct smell. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it.
That was one the Romans carried too.
Yes, the Romans loved it.
And its name.
Yes, it's like Latin name is Achilles. It's named after Achilles, and apparently he, like during the Trojan War, would use it on all of the wounded, and his army was supposed to be stronger, like because of that, which I think is pretty cool.
It can also be very invasive, so look out where you put it.
Yes, absolutely. It can be invasive. Same thing with like any of the mint plants and things like that. You'd never want to put. Like we have our mint in the boxes, and like even that, it's taking over the world. So like, don't ever plant it in the ground because your entire lawn will turn into mint. Same with like lemon balm and things, anything related to peppermint or spearmint. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna say, a few times my kids have gotten scratches and I'll put raw honey on.
Yes.
I didn't know if there was a similar property, or is it just, I mean, it'll stop.
Yeah, well, with the honey, that's more of like antibacterial, which is wonderful. So that's a great option, but obviously if you don't have honey, yarrow is antimicrobial, but not as much as honey. So honey is a great option. This is more of like a clotting agent. So like honey doesn't always stop. Like if you have a really bad gouge, let's say, the honey wouldn't necessarily.
Talking like the
I mean like you really, yarrow would definitely be the one that I would turn to, and it's one of my like what I call like first aid herbs, just to kind of keep. Yeah, especially for like little ones that you have running around. It's really safe too, which is great. Yes.
I grow yarrow, but the leaves are way finer.
Our finer. No, you're fine. There's just different varieties. Like even like my flower is yellow. There's also white, and is there red?
Yeah,
I think there's also red. I've never seen the red, but I've worked with both the yellow and the white. And then yeah, when this first started, it was like the tiniest little plant, and they were very fine leaves. It just kind of depends on the variety and the growing conditions. So as long as you remember that they kind of have like that feathery look, and even when you touch them, like they're kind of soft and that really distinct smell, yeah, you should be fine. There's no relative of yarrow that's like poisonous that you're using like the wrong thing.
And it's really good for nosebleeds.
Yes, yeah.
But you
and
can't
Really?
like what she was just doing. You don't want to do that. You want to kind of like roll it. And,
yeah, you don't.
because you don't want a bunch of herbs like shoved
Right.
up your nose.
Yes.
But so you kind of roll it and then put it in your.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great one. Do you guys just want to like smell some of the different ones and talk about a few? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Nosebleeds with lights hands up.
Yeah, it is.
I have a drying rack. That's it.
This is sage. It reminds me of Thanksgiving. It's another one people either really like to smell or you don't like it so much. Yeah, everything in here is pretty much edible except for our eucalyptus. You don't want to.
Oh, never mind. Not a big one.
It smells so good.
Smells good.
All right, so the sage is a great one. That's a culinary one. You can throw that in your soups. I will throw it. Sage, rosemary, oregano, and thyme are the 4 during the winter that you want to keep in mind. Even if you just buy them at the store or if you keep them in a container like in your kitchen, they are all so great for the flu, the cold. They're great at boosting the immune system, at killing off bacteria. So I use those like crazy. If I get really sick, I'll even put sage like in my socks sometimes when I'm at home. Yeah, because it's so powerful, and especially like how aromatic it is. It's really great for like lung infections. It can kind of clear up like, some bad congestion.
And it actually stays green fairly late into the year.
Yes, sage is very hardy, so you can keep it outside pretty late in the year, which is why a lot of people use it for Thanksgiving meals because it's still growing by then. So that's an easy one too that you can put into a pot, and it'll even survive like in people's sun porches like throughout the winter. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I saw there's like a lot of different kinds of sage. Is there like a best kind of sage or?
All sage is equal.
Really? Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
They have different flavors.
They have different flavors, so it's really a personal preference. I like white sage and red sage, the ones that like grow in this area, or I should say purple sage. But I'm trying to see. I thought we had purple. I only like the purple one just because of its color.
Okay.
But really, the white sage I think is my favorite to cook with. Just like how it dries and the flavor is just really nice. But yeah, any sage, it all has the same properties, maybe just a little bit different in flavor.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a good time to pick herbs? I heard like when the sun's highest or something.
It depends on the herb, and so that's one thing I think people get intimidated by is they don't know like when to harvest some of them, and that is one downside is like you kind of have to just learn and like kind of play with them. I would say most of your culinary herbs like your oregano, thyme, rosemary, basil, all that kind of stuff, you can really harvest those whenever you want to. I will just go out and harvest them right when I'm making the meal, or if you want to, earlier in the day so that they're ready to go. But then other ones like the flowers, like the calendula and the yarrow, and even like this one, which is feverfew, I like to come out like, this is even a little bit too late. Like I like to get out right in the morning when they're open, but you want to make sure they aren't too wet from like the dew kind of thing, and you just pick those right off. I'm trying to think of another example where you should pick what are ones that you have to do like
Well, it
at
depends.
high noon,
Like
yeah.
if it depends on what you're using in the plant too.
Right.
So if you're using a root from a plant, like you
Yes.
had burdock.
burdock. Yep.
Burdock. Burdock leaves are extremely bitter,
This is burdock, in case you're wondering. This
but but burdock is an incredible plant, especially for burns. The Amish use it for burns. But the root, obviously, during the way growing seasons go, the plant is during the spring and summer, it's sending all its energy up to get the leaves. So you would want to harvest the root like in the fall.
in the fall, yep.
Or you can do it really early spring before it starts to shoot up
Yeah,
plant. So it
absolutely.
depends on what you're using the plant
Yes,
for.
and I will say it is a workout getting that burdock
Oh.
root out. I had like 10 freshmen from UT over here, and I thought I was going to die. Like we were working so hard to get the root, and it's just so hard because it goes so deep, and then it has like all
like
these other.
straight, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, they're
like
like
taproot.
giant sweet potatoes. Like they have these huge tap roots, and so they can be a little difficult to harvest, but they're so beneficial and they're so great to add to your meals. Like in the fall, they have a very earthy flavor, almost like a potato, but more like dirt. And but they're very good for you.
But like he was just saying, if you go to the store, you can buy burdock in a store.
Yeah.
Some stores have it. It is not the same. I mean, you'll see these real thin papered because they grow them in sand. A lot of them because of the
Yeah,
harvesting.
because it'll be so much easier to harvest. They don't want to work so hard, which I totally understand because it's very difficult. But yeah, it doesn't have the same qualities.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Another herb for culinary one, parsley is so great. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but we'll pass a little around. You can nibble on it or smell it. And parsley is a great medicinal herb as well as a culinary herb because it's great for like detoxing. And so like if you ever go, if you ever go to a juice bar, parsley and cilantro are in like every other juice. And that's because it's great to like detox your liver and it kind of just gets things moving. So it's a really good one to add to your meals.
But like she was saying, cilantro. This is a weird little thing that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people hate cilantro.
Yes.
And it's a genetic thing.
Really? And then
All right, you guys. So this one that you see, we probably walked past a bunch of them, and you see it all over the herbal garden. Kind of looks like they have like little lily pads, and it has these really beautiful flowers. This is nasturtium. This is a really fun one to grow, especially when we have little kids come to the garden, because the flowers are edible.
Everyone should try this.
Everyone can try this. There's some over there if you want to pick some, or you don't have to, but take a petal, eat it. They're so much fun to kind of add to salad.
They're high in vitamin C,
Very high in vitamin C.
amino acids.
Pass them around, I'll pick some more.
Hop in.
And this is a really easy one to grow, especially in this area. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Just like
Just like you thought a flower would taste.
the bottom part kind
spicy,
of
though.
spicy.
Yeah, kind of like.
in there.
Yeah, you gotta eat the bottom part.
Yeah, the bottom part has a pretty
It's
good
like a
kick to
radish.
it.
It's like a radish.
Yep.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
You pop the whole thing in and you'll get a little bit more spice and like a petal.
A little bit more at the end.
Can you eat the leaves too?
The leaves are edible too, but not as much fun as eating the flowers.
Okay, that's true.
But yeah, and they're so much fun, and that's a
salad. Oh,
really
that'd be
easy
so
one to
good in a
identify because it looks like a lily pad, and they come with the flowers. The flowers can be red, yellow, orange, but they're very vibrant. And that one is so easy to grow. I literally planted them from seed this year, and this is one plant.
Wow,
So
really?
it's like growing up on the burdock. It's going everywhere. So that's really easy. That's nasturtium. Yeah. And then we've got lots of peppermint, spearmint, which you guys are probably familiar with. It's another one that the little kids love. Yeah.
What do you do with the Queen Anne's Lake?
Queen Anne's Lace. That is a great question. Let me. All right. So you guys probably see this everywhere you go.
Yeah.
On the side of the highway, grows in the ditches. It grows in the grass, and this is Queen Anne's Lace, also known as wild carrot, and that's because it smells like a carrot. You pass it around the flowers. Break it a little bit, and you can kind of get that smell. Get some more leaves.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's edible, but it's got a poison lookalike
Yes, there's a poison lookalike, so this is one that you have to be careful with.
that grows in this area. And that's hemlock, water hemlock. So
Yes, this is one that you have to be really cautious with. Keep passing.
More Socrates.
Yeah.
But there's a saying, do you have a stem?
Yes.
There's a saying, the queen has hairy legs.
Yep. No, seriously, that's how you remember.
And that's how you remember it.
Well,
Because
that's hard to forget. So.
hemlock has like purpley spots and it's smooth, but the queen has hairy legs.
It's hard to see, but you can kind of if you look, like there's all the little hairs, and like the hemlock you'll see will have like these purple spots to it. So that's how you distinguish
Nature
it.
knows.
But the leaves are so right. Yeah, you have to kind of see how they.
The Queen Anne's lace.
Yeah, you have to.
So on the stem itself, it will be purple dots for.
Yes, on the
It's
stem
kinda
itself.
sweet.
So that's how you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
You have to be so careful because it grows just like Queen Anne's
No bells
in the
are going on.
ditches all around. So you have to make sure that you're using that to like identify it.
Go grow my own instead of picking it from the wild.
Yeah, right.
It's not really.
Well, and there's, like, if you're wild crafting, there's kind of a rule of thumb. If you go to pick something and you go, well, yeah, that looks like Queen Anne's lace, but someone says to you, are you sure that's Queen Anne's lace? And if you even hesitate a moment,
Then
then don't pick it.
No go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone can just make you waver just one, well,
yes, and that's how I am with like mushrooms. Like, I think I'll pass on that because I'm not very confident yet in that. Where like with Queen Anne's lace, no problem. Like I can identify it pretty quickly. So just practice. So like next time you guys go to the park or something, especially like in the spring or next summer or even now like in the fall, you know, go and look, like check out this stem and like see if you know, for the most part, I think the parks are pretty on top of it, so you won't find the hemlock version, but you know, maybe. But, yeah.
So what do you use the hemlock version?
Oh, what do you use Queen Anne's lace for? You can't use the flower.
well, people use the seeds for
Yeah.
different things. They use them for hormone type of treatments. It's nutritious. I mean, it's like a wild carrot. They also
You can like dig up the root, and that's what most people use, like the whole wild carrot concept. I've heard of some people using the leaves and flowers. I personally have never, I haven't done that yet, so I'm not sure. And I think I just get so nervous because of the hemlock thing that I'm like, I don't know, like I'm not ready for that. But I have used the root, and it definitely has like that carrot flavor. Same thing, you can just add it to different foods. You know, you can make like a tincture out of it is what a lot of people do, and they'll do that with the seeds as well. And that's mostly for what do you say, like reproductive.
What's a
things like that.
tincture?
Oh yeah, so that's one thing. I'm so sorry. So I keep using the word salve and I keep using the word tincture, and I forget that I haven't explained what that is. So in case you don't know, like an herbal salve is basically when you infuse an oil with an herb. So you're taking out all the good properties of that herb and you're getting it into the oil, and then you're adding beeswax or something and making it into almost like a lotion. I'll show you, we have lots of examples because that's what we're going to be making today. And it's so great. It's mostly topical, but the one we're making is very safe. So like if your kid ate the whole thing, like they'd be totally cool, like it'd be fine. But for the most part, it's used for like acne or eczema, or if you have a cut or a burn. People use it for psoriasis, all sorts of things like that. Poison ivy you can use it for. And then a tincture is when you take an herb and you soak it in high-proof alcohol. And so you're doing the same kind of concept. You're pulling out all the good stuff into that alcohol, and then you're just kind of setting it in your cupboard. So when you, let's say you get a cold and you want to use oregano, but your oregano is gone for the winter, then you just go in and grab your tincture, put a couple drops under your tongue, and you're getting all the properties of that oregano.
Queen Anne's lace is also it's an anti-lytic, I believe they call it. So for kidney stones and urinary tract infections. And
yeah, I know that also the same with burdock too. Those are really good ones for like UTIs and things like that. Yeah, was there another question?
Yeah. So if you, for instance, put spearmint into a salve, where it's like into the oils, that's how you get all the properties out, versus the alcohol, are there different substances that are being extracted in both of those, and can they be used for different things, or are they generally overlapped in their uses?
They definitely can be used for different things. I mean, for the concept is that you're getting the same properties. People have like personal opinions and preferences on that. Like some people will say like, oh, calendula, like you only want to do that with oil and you don't want to do that with alcohol. But it just kind of depends on that specific herb. So there are ones that are more likely to be made into an oil than they are to be used with alcohol, but there are some that a lot of them that you can do both with. Do you have anything to add?
Well, it also depends on what you're going to use it for.
Right.
I mean, you know, if you're going to use it as a salve, well, first of all, if you're going to use it to like heal some type of skin, like using plantain from the yard, which we walked over a million, well, obviously you don't want alcohol
Right.
to put it on.
Yeah.
So that's one of the issues. And then there's issues that are way beyond this class about, what you are extracting, what type of plant it is.
Sure.
So certain things don't extract well in alcohol or...
Yeah, so that's more like if you get pretty in-depth. And I actually have a book, there's 2 books that you might be interested in looking at that I have in there. I set out like a resource table. There's one that breaks down like the chemistry of each herb, and that I love because it shows you like all the components and like the best way to extract it and like how many milligrams of each thing are like supposed to be. So like that's really cool, and that like for me, I'm a science nerd, so like I love that kind of stuff. For some people, it's like way too much information, but that's definitely something to like look at if you're interested in maybe like a certain one in particular, because it really like breaks it down.
And you can also extract, like instead of alcohol, if there's some reason you don't want alcohol, you can use glycerin.
Yeah.
But I think that tastes horrible. I mean,
It
it's
tastes
really
horrible. Yeah, there are theories that that's safer than like using alcohol. So there's so many things, just like when you get down to like the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Let's think about a couple of kind of out of season. I don't know if you can see them. I have some goji berries. And that is something that honestly until a couple of years ago I didn't even know that you could grow in this area, but they grow so well. Like there's actually a farmer that I just heard of who he grows like hundreds of pounds of goji berries here every year, and like in the middle of summer, like this entire thing, like you can just sit here and eat goji berries, and they're so good for you. They're so high in vitamin C. They're like, considered a superfood. So if like you went over to Bassett's or Claudia's, like you would see like dried goji berries, and like they're added into trail mix, and you can buy like goji berry powder and add them to your smoothies. And so this is literally something that you can just grow in your backyard. If you guys want to try some, I have a bunch of dried ones inside, or if you want to come pick a fresh one, there's a couple in here if you want to dig. If you haven't had one, I think they taste like bad tomatoes, but I love eating them because I know that they're good for me. Some people like despise eating them, but that's a really fun one. And then there's echinacea, which is another one you'll see at a lot of the parks around here. That is like the go-to one that people use for wintertime. Oh, you get a cold, echinacea. You get the flu, echinacea. It's great for the immune system. It's a beautiful flower. Obviously, it's the end of the season, so they don't look so great right now. You can use the flower petals, but you can also use the roots. And so that one is so much fun, especially like if I'm out at one of the parks and in like the middle of July, beginning of August, there's so many of them. I'll totally pick a couple petals because they, they're wildcrafted. They've just been out there. And those are so much better than ones that you've like cultivated. Another great one over here is this is tea tree, which is so much fun because if you've ever been to like a health food store or something, tea tree is in like every body product, and like you can buy tea tree oil, and especially if you're into essential oils, like that's a really great one. It is antifungal, it's antimicrobial, it's everything.
I always thought that was just like
I didn't either. I figured it
the
was-
woody
yeah.
part of the tea plant. Like it's an actual
Right.
other. It's
Yeah,
an other
it's an
herb.
actual, right.
Wow.
So I don't know, if you kind of like break it up a little bit, you can smell it.
No, it's just a plant, but I didn't know it grew around.
Wow, it's really like mentholy.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You check it out.
I didn't know they grew around.
I don't either.
Yes, so you
Oh, yeah?
have to put them inside during the winter because they get really sensitive. And I was lucky that mine survived our very weird summer. It's obviously not native to this area, and it can be kind of expensive to buy one. But yeah, actually, I think this year she started selling them, so next year I'm pretty sure she will.
Did we get that one at Haynes?
Oh yeah, and Haynes Greenhouse had them as well. I'm sure they don't have them now, but maybe next year if you were interested in getting one. But that one I just think is so much fun because it's such a common one that people use like in their body products. Another really fun one that I didn't even notice came back this year. I won't make anyone eat these unless they're really brave. This is called a buzz button or a toothache medicine.
Or a what?
Toothache medicine.
It's very cool.
So literally, you pop these in your mouth, you chew it, and your entire mouth will go numb like you just got Novocaine. It doesn't last for very long, but this is what they used to say, like, okay, like we have to pull out your tooth, you had put a mouthful, you're gonna drool everywhere, but it's very effective. It lasts for like 5 to 10 minutes. So it's actually really fun. Like sometimes the kids come over and like they love chewing on them. Like, oh my gosh, my mouth is numb. But that one's just so much fun. If you want to pass it around, if you want to eat them, go for it. I call it buzz. Yes, we have lots of hops growing all around the garden.
Is that good for sleeping?
It's great for sleeping.
What do you pick?
It's like a
I see it
tea leaf.
growing
Oh,
wild all
sure.
over.
With some hops. Okay. We'll go back inside in a minute, so I won't kill you with my buzz button. So for the hops, you harvest this little part.
Is it okay that parts of it's burnt?
What's that?
Is it okay that some of it's
Yeah,
burnt?
because it's the end of the season, that's why that's happening. But oh yeah, these are still good. You know, obviously they're starting to dry out. There's been some cold nights and things like that. All I know about hops is that people will like add it to their tea or take it as a supplement for sleeping. But really, the hops that's growing, my boss loves because he does his own beer stuff. So I don't know that much about it.
I heard like put it like in a little
Oh, maybe like the same idea as like a lavender kind of thing. Yeah, smell it though. I wouldn't want to sleep with that. Lemongrass is a really great one to put in your backyard because it helps keeping mosquitoes away. Because when it smells them, it's really strong. It's a great smell. I'll even take some and add it to my flower bouquet so that it'll be kind of like in the house, and it just is really uplifting and energizing. Some people will use it in their teas to like wake them up if you are like a coffee drinker. So that's a really fun one. And then one of my other favorite ones over here, although the flowers are dying, I have some dried ones inside. This is anise hyssop. And if you don't like licorice, then don't smell this. This has a very strong licorice smell. This is great for lung infections, pneumonia. This is anise hyssop. So the hyssop grows native. There's two different kinds in this area. And this is the one that smells like licorice.
Yeah, it's really strong.
Isn't that what the deer eat?
The deer? Probably. They must. It's pretty strong though. Yeah.
Oh, I love
You know what part is it? That's pretty rare.
Lemon balm is a really great one to add to the herbal garden. Chives are really easy to grow. But yeah, let's go back in and let's start doing our salve. Okay, so the salve that we're going to be making today, everyone gets to go home with one. I think we have plenty of oil for it. So the way that you start out by making a salve, obviously, is either you order your dried herbs or you go and harvest your fresh herbs. So I did a combination of both. I had a decent amount. I did a lot of the prep work already, or else we would be here all day long. So some of the like calendula and yarrow that we harvested throughout the whole summer from the garden went into making your oils for today. So you just get your herbs, or you can order them. So like I had a giant bag plus a lot that I had harvested, and all you have to do at first is kind of like take your dried herbs and then you fill up a mason jar, any kind of glass container. So you fill it up. This is probably a little too high, but just kind of loosely put it in there, and then you choose your oil. I always recommend organic, and I usually recommend coconut oil, olive oil, or avocado oil. These are a combination of all three because all three have different benefits. Coconut oil salves will last the longest. Olive oil salves are like the cheapest to make and also beneficial, so it just kind of depends, what you're going for. So then all you do is you take your dried herbs in your glass container and you get your oil from Costco or wherever you want to go, and you just fill up the container. And I used all my oil already, so pretend you want to like fill it up to the top, or you can use big containers like this, and if you're going to make them for Christmas presents or something, then that's a great way to do it. And you want to fill it up all the way to the top, and then you put your lid on. And then here is where you kind of get creative. There are different ways to infuse the oil. So if you have lots of time, especially during the summertime, okay, so keep in mind this is full, lid's on, right? And you can put it outside in the sun or in your sunroom, in a window, and you can just leave it. 5-6 weeks, you can even leave it up 2 months or something, and just slowly, just the heat from the sun is going to infuse the oil. And it's going to get like a really beautiful color. Especially with the coconut oil, you can tell like the color just gets so rich, like yellow, smells really sweet. But if you're in a rush, there's different ways you can do it. You can do it in a crock pot, you can do it in a yogurt maker, you can do it in the oven, you can do like a double boiler, but you want to do at least like 3 to 5 hours if you do a heat method. So like today, this one I soaked for about a week, and then today I'm heating it up again because we're going to strain this just so I can show you how it works. So however you want to fill up your container and make your like infused oil. And then the really exciting and very messy part is, so I don't know if you can, so I filled all this up and it's been sitting in oil. And then what you do is you take your cheesecloth and you're going to strain it. So you go over, you strain out all the flours and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, get all your oil out, and then you're at this point where you get your beautiful oil. It's been infused, it's wonderful, and then all you have to do really after that is to just put it on the stove and melt your beeswax into it. You can add essential oils, you can add anything you want to kind of like make it your own. People prefer that they're like really soft and almost like a lotion, so that just kind of all depends. So even like when we make ours today, you can let me know like we'll kind of do it in groups. Like if there's a group that would prefer one to be softer or made with the honey ones, then we can do that as well.
And if you like make your own, especially with coconut oil, and it gets grainy, it's still good.
Yes, oh yeah, it's so good.
If it heats up and it solidifies, sometimes it'll get grainy.
Right. Yeah, and I'm going to pass around too beeswax from our beehives. Has a really wonderful smell to it. And one good thing about using the fresh beeswax from like a local hive, even the ones with honey, is that there's so many medicinal properties. The pollen is still in there, all the nutrients are still in there, so you're getting that like in addition to like the herbs. But it's really easy to buy this also from the store and works just as well. All right, are you ready?
Do not buy the blocks of beeswax and try to...
Yeah, the blocks are, yeah, can be really messy. And oh, one thing that you should know is that beeswax is really flammable. So, some people make the mistake when they make their salve. So like when you have to add this to the oil, like we're gonna do it on the stove, never ever put it in a pot that's directly on the stove. Always do a double boiler, which we're gonna do, because if for some reason it gets too hot, you forget about it, it's left there, flammable. So that is one thing to like for sure keep in mind. All right. I don't think I can fit you all into the kitchen. I forgot to show you that cheesecloth. You can buy it at a health food store. Some grocery stores carry it. It's really simple. And then all we're going to do is kind of put the cheesecloth over the bowl. And then one of us will like dump the oil and flours in. And then you just use the cheesecloth to kind of gather it, and we'll squeeze out all the good oil.
Okay.
Okay, so you just start dumping. That's too much. Okay, so you dump it out. Most of the oil goes through the cheesecloth into your bowl or whatever you're using. Then you take it, wrap it up, and you just start squeezing the rest of the oil out. Usually, like if you're doing a really big container, like a giant crock pot or something, obviously just do it a little bit at a time. So you just kind of keep maneuvering it, just get as much of that oil out, as many as like the nutrients out of the herbs as you can. All right. So then, it's kind of hard to see, then you have like your bowl, your fresh oil. And so that's what this is. It's delicious. It actually smells like candy. I think it smells so good. So then we're ready to melt our beeswax and pour our salves. Right now I just have first you want to make sure, because I like the double boiler thing because the beeswax is flammable. So I just make sure that I have 2 pots, one that was good and the other one. This one does. So you fill this one with water up to the point where it'll reach the bottom of the other one. And then you just turn it on. Typically you want it on like low or medium heat. And then it's starting to get hot pretty good. So then this one is empty. So you put it on in there. And then we're going to add our infused oil. Someone want to pour? Okay, so you pour your infused oil in. And then, do you guys have a preference of how you want your salve? Do you want it hard? Do you want it soft? Do you you don't care?
We want,
Soft
wait, or however you do it.
However I do it? Okay. Well, I think it's so much fun, especially since you guys were here yesterday harvesting the wax and the honey. So we'll do like a little combination of one. So this literally came out of the hive yesterday.
Wow.
The best way is most people will try to get the honey out of there so they can just use the wax. I think that that's great. That's what we did last year, and like the balls I passed around, that's kind of how we did it, and that's wonderful. But since the honey is medicinal, I figured, why waste my time last night? Let's just do it. Typically, obviously right now we're just kind of winging it. Typically, like if you are someone that likes to measure it out, you want an ounce of wax to every 4 ounces of liquid. So like this is 4 ounces, so you can, sometimes I'll calculate out like, okay, like how much olive oil did I use, and I'll actually measure out like if I'm using the pellets of wax, the ones that have like been through everything. But since this one has honey in it, it's a little bit different because it adds some more moisture to it.
Yeah.
So you guys can get closer if you want to look in there and see how much we put in. Literally all you have to do is just keep an eye on it and wait for that wax to melt. And the way that I test is not that smart, but I just put my finger in. It's obviously, it doesn't get that hot, I promise. But like since we just put it in, obviously the oil just runs everywhere. You'll know when it's ready when you put your finger in, and like kind of like a paraffin wax, like girls know. You pull your hand out, and when you put your hand in like a candle, and the wax kind of hardens up right away. That's kind of when you know, like okay, like that's a perfect ratio. Like it's good to go. But usually wait to do that until everything is melted.
Since I missed all of this, what's there? That's olive oil?
It's coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, and then the herbs that I used were calendula and yarrow, and then there's some lavender in there.